Welcome back to CBS News 24/7 Primetime. I'm Juliette Goodrich. Sources tell CBS News Border Patrol Commander Gregory Bovino is leaving Minneapolis along with some of his agents amid the growing backlash over the deadly shooting of ICU nurse Alex Pretti. Bovino has been relieved of his command in the operation in Minnesota. Now, video from the scene, it contradicts some of the claims by Bovino and other officials. So we want to show you that video with a warning. It is graphic. So let's go into it. First, you see a federal agent push a person to the ground and pepper spray them. More officers then wrestle Alex Pretti to the ground before at least one of them opens fire multiple times. CBS News reviewed these videos, and we noticed Pretti was holding a cell phone in his right hand and nothing in his left hand. The video also shows an officer take a gun from Pretti's waist right before another officer shot and killed him. Police say he was licensed to carry that gun. So I want to bring in Amy Sweasy, adjunct professor of law at the University of Minnesota and former assistant Hennepin County attorney. Amy, typically in cases like this, there are multiple agencies involved in this investigation. In this particular case, the Department of Homeland Security is exclusively handling the investigation. So how will that impact the next steps, and how might state agencies try to push for information?
Well, thank you for having me on. It's good to be with you. What's really unusual about this is that the federal agency, since it's a federal officer that's handling this, is the Department of Homeland Security as opposed to the FBI. And certainly the Department of Homeland Security may have investigative procedures that they use for employment investigations, but it's going to be different than what we, at least in Minnesota, have come to expect from a use of force investigation, which is an inquiry into the reasonableness of the force that's used, as opposed to, say, perhaps whether or not any of the officers' actions here violated the procedures of the Homeland Security Department. That's kind of a different inquiry. And I think one of the concerning things for Minnesotans, in light of the fact that our state investigative agency has been kind of pushed out here from doing that, is that it's not going to be the same type of investigation with the same kind of rigor that this community has come to expect in use of force. Lethal investigations.
Certainly. We've seen the cell phone video from bystanders, and now we're learning two U.S. officials tell CBS News some of the Border Patrol agents involved in the fatal shooting of Alex Pretti also had body cameras. And then there's the video from Alex's phone. So what will happen to those videos? Do we think the attorneys in the case will be able to look at those and maybe make them public?
Well, at some point, obviously, the Minnesota Bureau of Criminal Apprehension, which is taking action in state court to prevent the federal government from basically destroying any evidence or making sure the BCA gets access to it, that's it's a really interesting piece of information to come today. It's surprising to be learning 2 days later that some of the agents that were involved in this were wearing body-worn camera. At the time that it happened, we understood that in the Renee Good case, there were no body-worn cameras. So I'm surprised, frankly, from a transparency point of view, that we're just learning about it now, and that Border Patrol wasn't more forthcoming about that. Obviously, as important as this bystander video is and the amount of that we have, perhaps the most important video will be from the people who were actually experiencing this event, which would be the Border Patrol agents and Mr. Pretti himself. So that, at least for state court investigators or state investigators here in Minnesota and eventual prosecutors, that is evidence that's going to be crucial in reviewing the actions of the officers here to determine whether any criminal charges might be appropriate.
Sure. And two federal hearings today. The first involving the state asking ICE to leave Minnesota altogether. The second involving preserving evidence in Alex Pretti's case. How do you think the judges are going to rule in these cases?
Well, it's very hard to say, because it sounds like both judges were very, very clear on the record today that they are facing basically unprecedented legal issues. And it can be very challenging to predict judicial behavior under any circumstance, but particularly when judges are admittedly dealing with kinds of things they've never seen before. I think for the government, the easier case to make is the one related to the preservation of evidence in the case, and that there is a state court interest because there is a possible violation of Minnesota law here. That would, preserving that evidence would be important, whether or not there down the line is a prosecution and there become issues of federal jurisdiction or federal immunity. All of that would come long after an investigation. And there really, I think, is a pretty important state interest in preserving evidence, which is not the kind of motion you hear law enforcement agencies make every day to prevent another law enforcement agency from tampering with or doing anything with the investigative data they might want to see. As for the other federal lawsuit, Judge Menendez clearly made it obvious on the record that this is a matter of top priority and that there are unprecedented issues here. So I'm a little less comfortable predicting what we might see there.
Understandable. Amy Sweasy. Amy, thank you.
Thank you.